If you can just be so detailed of describing the problem, people will believe you can fix it. Most people do, they skip all the first three and they go straight into, I want to get an appointment with you. I went to Pilates class. Don't do that, guys. Try to hide it in the United States, but now it's catching up to me. Are you inside of our business? How do you know this stuff? I literally sold nothing. I was a horrible, unsuccessful salesperson. Cold calling is not dead if it's done right.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Harvest. This is the MSP Sales Show. Those regular listeners around here will know this is all about focusing on getting away from those net new logos, that fixation of net new logos, and looking at our existing customer base for where the business is. But we're going to take a departure today with my guest. Every now and then, you may know, if you're a regular, you'll know we sometimes like to dip into, when we've got a specialist on board, actually have a look at that, because we're never saying that it's not about the new business entirely. So we're going to focus, if we can, on this today. I'm going to bring in my guest, Donald C. Kelly. Donald, say a quick hello for me.
Well, hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate James for letting me be here.
Hey, no worries. It is brilliant to have you on. And I'm trying to fight the urge to get you to do your intro. I mean, I don't know whether you need to do it.
We can do it. My name is Donald C. Kelly, the Sales Evangelist.
Oh, lovely. And that's 1,200 episodes that's been practiced or something like that, isn't it? So Donald is a...
It's crazy right now. We just did last week the 2000th episode. 2000. So I am, we've done that one once or twice. Don't listen to episode number 1 and the first 50, you're going to be like, this sounds lame. But 2000.
The confidence came. Now it's just, you're just doing it in your sleep, aren't you? No, listen, hats off to you. That's kind of consistency. We're always saying to MSPs, look, you need consistency in your marketing, and that is it right there. 2000. That's really quite impressive. So just for those who aren't familiar with your work, so Donald is the Sales Evangelist, runs a really successful podcast, also has a book out there, so Sell It Like a Mango. We can talk a little bit about that as well, and has a SaaS platform. Donald is a great person to have on to be talking today about new lead generation. Before we get started, I'm going to do a quick shout out to Sales Builder, the quotation and proposal tool for Autotask, ConnectWise and Halo. If you haven't yet got a proposal solution, make sure you go and check those guys out. The first step for this podcast, Donald, is always a misconception. Tell us, what do people get wrong about you when they first meet you?
So you will probably hear this somewhere throughout the episode as well, but I was born in Jamaica and I moved to the United States when I was 9. And I am, in Florida and Jamaica has a lot in common culturally and also with the food and the ocean. And I do not like seafood. So that's my misconception. A big misconception there is being a Floridian and a Jamaican surrounded by water. I think I waste the space of a Floridian here. So that's one of my big misconception people always get wrong with me.
Okay, so what's actually happened is you've been kicked out of Jamaica for not eating the fish, right? That's what
it was. That's what it was. Like, oh, come here now, eat the good food, man. Ghana foreign, man. So that's
it, and you're out on your ear. I love it.
Yeah, I try to hide it in the United States, but now it's catching up to me, so it's out.
Yeah. That's it. Hopefully you'll have to move on again soon. But let's try and keep you while you're here. Let's try and get some nuggets of wisdom from you. So, okay, so the fish isn't on the menu, but the mangoes. Do you like this segue? The mangoes, they are.
They are, and that's the name. My book is called "Sell It Like a Mango." So I do love mangoes, and ever since I was a kid. But especially right now in Florida, we're coming into mango season, so that makes it exciting time.
And so we've got an MSP audience here, and notoriously, I mean, you do have a background, although that's not your specialty. You have worked with and for MSPs, so you understand that a lot of the time, people listening are going to be from sort of technical backgrounds. Sales isn't necessarily the comfort zone, and so on. But you've actually done the door-to-door selling, and that's the premise of the book, right? So can you just just give us a little anecdote then of sort of what that was like then, going door-to-door, and this is what you covered in your book, of course.
Yeah, so two things. I did I did do door-to-door selling. I did that when I was in college. And in that setting, I was selling security systems door to door. We did in the Midwest as full commission, and it was a great learning experience, James, because you have 45 minutes to close and get a system pretty much installed. You have like seconds and minutes in front of at the door. It's probably like good 10 seconds when you do your pitch to grab their attention. You just keep buying yourself time. But you at the end, you're probably looking at about 45 minutes, an hour, hour and a half, and this person have a security system, holes in their wall, and it's pretty crazy. But that was a fun experience. The book was more so from as a kid, I was selling mangoes. I tried to sell mangoes. Let's back up. I tried to, and I wasn't successful selling. I saw people like in the Spanish town, downtown selling, and I thought, if they're selling mangoes, people want mangoes. I could sell mangoes and I could make money from this. But it turns out.
How old were you then? Sorry.
Oh my goodness. I was probably between 6 to 8, 6 to 9.
Excellent.
And I just thought because other people were selling it, therefore there's a demand, therefore I could sell it as well. The challenge that came from that, I tried to sell my mangoes and I could not. I literally sold nothing. And so I was a horrible and unsuccessful salesperson at that point. But I learned a lot over the years as I was working with my book coach. He was like, tell me about the first thing you sold. And I explained to him the mango and how I was trying to sell this, had a stand and setting up. And then as I dissected, I'm like, holy moly, this is just like B2B sales. Because you might see another MSP provider and you're like, well, they're offering MSP. I can offer MSP. Surely it's not that difficult. I can find prospects. But the challenge is it's not necessarily the product, even though you may have similar product or service. And it may be, not too different from the buyers. It's usually the salespeople that make the difference. Because in a mango sales case, the mango wasn't any much different. I mean, it's not like we're getting mango from Indonesia versus Japan. It was mangoes that were grown in Jamaica and that were probably from the same region.
That's literally down to the experience and the connection with you, isn't it, I suppose?
Right? Yeah, so that makes a difference when it comes to a seller. So the book is all around Sell It Like a Mango, a B2B guide for closing more deals. And I just explained my experience going through that, how I was hiding behind a gate. Literally, in Jamaica, we have these big gates around our property. My little stand was behind the gate, so people were walking past our street, but they didn't see me behind the gate, much less under the tree selling mangoes. Right? It was kind of silly. They didn't know where I was, but I thought if I build it, they were going to come. And then there's several other things that came from that, like the fear, and then having a system. And I saw the people who were really successful selling mangoes, how they had it. But I take all of that and I put it in my B2B sales experience, and especially when I was selling MSP, I saw other people that were selling MSP services. And the thing that I was like, man, they're doing it. We can definitely do it too. But our firm, we had a lot of things wrong. I don't know if you guys remember, she was big in the MSP space, maybe still around, but Robin. But she had this, I forgot her last name, but she had these training courses.
Robin Robbins is this?
Robin Robbins. There you go. Yeah. So she had all of these training courses, and my manager at the time invested in all of this. And it's like, well, how come we are not being as successful as some of these other people? And it came to a straight hold in our face, in my face at least later on. It wasn't about the service. It was about the individual behind it. So how can we help individual MSP individuals? How can we help the firms that are mid-sized firms? How can we help them be more successful? There are principles and systems that you've been teaching on this podcast that helps them to do so. And especially in our case today, conversation is going to be around how they can use, find some new business, some strategies, but also how they can maintain and extract some from the existing companies that they have. And so that's, and the clients so fast forward with our podcast, I started a podcast in 2012. Podcasts got mentioned in Entrepreneur Magazine, HuffPost, Yahoo Finance. Did a stint with South Florida Business Journal article here. We repurposed that with a news article, pitched the news, and they did something on us. But I started getting clients from my podcast and people in my network, and then I saw there was something viable from it. So I started coaching individual salespeople on moonlighting, so to speak, in the evenings, and then in the nighttime. And then by 2015, the podcast had gained some momentum that I left my full-time gig and started doing coaching and consulting. Fast forward, as we started doing training programs, I worked with a couple MSP companies that hired us to help their salespeople as they were selling to MSP organizations. So my background is tethered there a little bit with MSP, from my individual day selling to work and consulting and coaching MSP companies as well.
Well, this is it. It's funny how, I mean, I feel like you've been on my kind of radar probably for almost like a number of years, which sounds a bit freaky. Sorry, that's just one of those things. But you pop up both on the MSP front because I think myself like mutual connections, but also obviously I like to follow some of the sales stuff as well because it's just my kind of my area of interest. So it's really good that you got a bit of a crossover there. So I guess the obvious question then is, people listening to this who are struggling, who don't find it comfortable going out and necessarily cold calling or just looking at new business development, like what advice can you give in terms of, what mistakes do you see and did you see then? I mean, you touched on one there with the mangoes, like differentiation is always an issue because everyone will believe that their service is completely different and so on, but increasingly so they're very similar. So can you give us any words of wisdom there around the sort of the mistakes being made?
Yeah, I would probably say along that line, what I found, especially with non-sales people who are very technical, what they typically go back to, James, is this idea of the feature and the benefits or the features within an organization. We have this extra feature. We have this extra capability. We can do this. We have our best customer service. Like all of those are the features. But what I've come to realize over the years, it's about the problems that you can solve. And if we can anticipate what those problems are and to be better at describing those problems, we're going to be more successful because the buyer for the MSP companies are oftentimes, they're not always going to be, the business owners are not always the technical person. They do have tech on staff.
Not at all. Most cases, no.
But they do know they have a problem. I cannot go as an agency with my teams when we're hacked. I cannot operate if my system isn't working effectively. I can't if I have a physical office and I have like units set up and those units are not working properly. My team can't make money. That's an issue for me. That's the problem. I don't care how you do it. I don't care what patch or what systems that you utilize in the back end. I have a business problem. And I find that many people who are in the technical side, they want to speak the language that they are comfortable speaking, but you got to speak the language of your clients, which is that language of the business. So let me give you an example with this. We talk about it in our book as well. Is my wife is Spanish. My wife is Hispanic. She speaks Spanish and obviously English. She grew up in the Dominican Republic, moved here when she was a kid as well. They didn't kick her out of the country like they did for me with the fish thing. But
she's got the standard tastes. Yeah.
But she speaks Spanish. And when we went on our honeymoon to the Dominican Republic, it was the funniest thing, James. I look more Dominican than my wife does. And I've studied Spanish for like 6 years in school. So every so often, and growing up in South Florida here, I use my Spanglish and to get by on little stuff. But in the DR, I started speaking Spanish to them at the counter, and then all of a sudden they went off on a whole different like tangent, and I could not keep up. All of a sudden, my wife jumped in and started to speak their language, and everything changed. They started to erupt and started to laugh because she doesn't look Dominican, but all of a sudden they were calling people from the next booth over, holding up line. Hey, come look at this lady with her passport. She's Dominican. But she spoke their language and she was able to connect with them on a different level. I barely spoke the language and I didn't have that level of connection. And it's a subtle thing, but oftentimes, if let's pretend go back, I'm an MSP speaking my Spanglish to a business owner, emphasize much more on the English side, a little bit on the Spanish side. Business owners not getting that connection. But all of a sudden you start speaking their language. My wife comes in and speak the business language, quote unquote, Spanish to these Spanish speakers or quote unquote business owners. All of a sudden there's a deeper connection. They're like, you get me. You understand me. Let me introduce you to other people. Come and help us how we can fix this. Because you have to be able to describe the problem so well that the person, you don't even talk about your service. And this is the crazy part about this, James. Sometimes if you can just be so detailed of describing the problem, people will believe you can fix it. And it doesn't matter what the solution is. And that, if we can get MSP providers to be able to do that, come on, man, that's where the game changed. And there's a way we can go into conversations around that. But the way you do that is just go back to your last 2 or 3 cases of clients that you've helped and you have people that you're helping. Describe their business problem to this person, and they're going to say, oh my goodness, how are you in my business? How do you know this stuff? Well, I work with clients like you all the time, and we come across similar challenges, and we help them to fix that. I don't care how you fix it. Let's set an appointment, and you can help me fix it. And there's power in it. But it typically go back to you got to understand that pain. lead with the pain, not the benefits of features. So I can't say, well, we have 24-hour services and we have this amazing tech that we use and we use AI, blah, blah, blah. I don't care about that. We know many of the business owners we're looking at are trying to find ways to be able to allow their team to be able to work more faster and effective, especially in an age of AI environment, without having compromising their computers, especially in healthcare. If I can show you how we're doing this to make sure your team is properly utilizing AI without compromising your network and staying HIPAA compliant, would you be open to learning more? But I'm making this up, but you get the point where I'm trying to get at. Business problem versus features and benefit.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I really love that analogy. And it's something that so I mean, if you're immersed in this space, we hear a lot. So they're going through this, there's this sort of pressure at the moment, essentially, that the MSPs have to go from being sort of talking tech to being that kind of like business analyst. But I think you've really hit the nail on the head there in terms of, it's about deeply understanding the terminology that clients that's going to resonate with clients. And I couldn't agree more. I think the gap at the moment seems to be, okay, so that's what we need to do. But it's like, how do we get there? And you're right, you kind of underlined the importance of it. How can someone who's come from that sort of tech background do this? Do you think because my mind straight away goes to like verticals and niching down, like it's that, because that's then you've only got a smaller amount of terminology to run with. But I don't necessarily want that to be the advice. I don't know. What do you think? How can someone get closer to doing that? I mean, so is it going back to this last customer, like you said, and understanding what they're doing?
I'll give you a story of something that happened that I did, and then we can come back and patch, no pun intended, but kind of connect the two back here. But I worked for a software company, and I was new to the industry. We sold to city, county governments in K-12. I had never sold to the government before, James. Absolutely. And I was like, all the negative things you could think about selling to the government. They're slow, they take forever, it's hard to get a hold of people, blah, blah, blah. But this company had very niched down into this world, so they were great. The challenge was there was a competitor that was even nicher, and they were bigger than we were into one area. So in the cities, you have clerks, you have like your finance department, HR departments, and technical departments, and operations. You have so many different departments. And this company, Laserfish, they became so precise at the clerks. They built their software around the clerks, and it was helpful for the other departments. We had a solution that was excellent for clerk, excellent for finance, excellent for HR, excellent for all the different departments. But Laserfish they were bigger, and they were always just killing us and creaming us. So I was like, what can we do? How can I figure out the messaging that will make us resonate? So what I did, and it's easier, you can do this now, but I went to Laserfish website, and I was poking around, and John, the answers came to me. Laserfish has immense, like an extensive amount of case studies. So case studies to the clerk, case studies to the finance department, case studies to these other departments. And I read their case studies. Here's the thing. In the case study, the customer is describing the problem that they had. So let's say, for example, it's a paperless software that we had. Maybe they're saying, for us, it took forever to onboard new students inside of our company and inside of our school district. And it took us hours to be able to do so, anywhere from 3 to 4 hours to onboard one student. And it was, blah, blah, blah. But with Laserfish, we saw a 30% reduction in that time, and we were being more efficient, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, duh, here's the problem. Here's the solution. Describe this so well. So I started describing it as the reach to this department. Like, I know as many of the clients that we work with, or some of the clients we come across, they have a similar challenge you might do, where they probably have a lot of paper onboarding, especially with new students, and it could take hours, anywhere from 2 to 3 hours to onboard one student. And this builds up your time. If we can help you to reduce this by 20 to 30%, what kind of impact do you think this could have on your department? Well, oh my goodness, we can get a lot more done. But the point is, their case study told me exactly what to do already. And now I wasn't saying it was our story, but I saw the problem and I was able to describe the problem. So you can do this with your own customers, or look at the case studies of your bigger competitors in your space. You can do that then in niches. If you niche, it's great. You can definitely niche down and you can help with that. And you can also just look at the business problem, which is a horizontal approach. So what are CEOs dealing with right now across a variety of industries? Or what are typically...
the kind of like macro trends, you mean, to go out there and do a bit of research.
Exactly. And with AI, it's so much easier now. You can go to Claude, and if I can tell Claude, I'm trying to get into mid-size, I'm just going to make this up, James, here. I'm trying to get into mid-size doctor's offices in South Florida who have X amount of reviews on Google, and I'm trying to find triggers, or they've recently they're running some kind of ads, whether it's on Google or Meta or whatever. I'm trying to find those things, and then I can utilize that, or you can think about some triggers that you may have for your industry, and you can describe that. Claude then builds this out, and there are different tools you can add on to, but one that I use, there's an MCP for Apollo onto Claude, which allows for me to enrich after Claude does research and finds companies that fits my description that may have this type of problem, and then they fit my description, and then I enrich that from Apollo, and now I have a leads list of people that I can do outreach to. And here's the crazier part too. What I've done, don't tell people about this, and I'm put on a podcast, but hats out the what do you call it? Rabbits out the hat, right? But
yeah. It's all right. There's no one listening. You're fine.
No one listening. What we did was we did looked at our top competitors for one of the companies that I run. Look at all the top competitors of ours. Then we told Claude, look at their website, and I want you to pull all of their find all of their case studies, identify them by categories and by what pain point did they have that made them say this company is helping them out with or whatnot, and then go find the top competitors to that client in their space. I don't know if this makes sense now. So
I was with you into that last bit. So you're basically crawling your competitors, but then the top competitors you're paying more attention to.
So let's say I sell dishwashers, right? I sell dishwashers, and you are a manufacturer that also you have a lot of dish. Let's go back to MSP, and we'll use that as an example. So there are bigger firms out there in your space that are selling MSP services as well. So go to their website, look at their customers. When you see their customers, don't go and try to pitch them. They're really happy because they just did a case study.
Yeah, you're not after the contact details here, are you? It's intel.
No. Yeah, so it might just say, hey, James at manufacturing company. Great. Mm-hmm. Well, they tell you the company name. I want to find the competitor of that client of that company. Does that make sense?
That's the link I missed. Right. Okay. Yeah. So that's just giving you a bit of a stepping stone into that kind of that industry, as it were.
Yeah, because then now I can use this trigger. I can go back and say, let's use MSP again. So MSP at doctor's offices. I'm just going to keep going with the doctor's office example. James MSP services some of the biggest doctor's offices, the best ones here in the state of Florida. I want to break in. I'm in that market as well, but I can't get a piece of that pie so well. I need to know what's James saying. James is telling me in this case studies on his website what problems he's solving for these clients. Well, I looked at he has doctor's office A, B, and C. I want to go find now doctor's office A, B, and C top competitors. Claude does that and comes back and say, well, you have D, E, and F. They've just launched their practices over the past couple of years. They have great reviews, but they're looking to expand, and they're not big as these other competitors. But now I can come to them and say, hey, doctor's office D, B, D, E, and F. Many of the problems that blah, 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 you're facing, which I'm just getting from these case studies, we can help you solve, blah, blah, blah. And then now, I don't know if you noticed, but, doctor's office A, B, and C, some of those companies practices that are growing are doing X, Y, and Z. But I'm getting that intel, and it helps me to have conversations. So Claude does all of that for me, and then I tell Claude to go to Apollo, use my credits from Apollo, and enrich that with the email and phone numbers. That now allows me to have precise conversation that are relevant, because this is what A, B, and C customers are facing, because James' website told me that already, and this is how James is solving it for them. So then my conversation is relevant, and I can even put some FOMO on it and say, this is what some of the top companies in your industries are doing to fix those problems. Or I'm not sure if you recognize how A, B, and C are doing this. Is that something that you would be open to? Well, of course, if they're doing it, I want to do it as well. But the point I'm trying to make there, once you can focus on the problem and know it so well, it doesn't matter if you're going into a niche, that problem is going to resonate across, whether it's in the medical, in the dentistry, or maybe in a manufacturing space, or maybe in a marketing space. All of those companies may have the same business problem horizontally across, and a great MSP company can recognize that and can speak to that across those areas. So just be perfect at the problem, and it doesn't matter. It will allow you to be able to stand out. Hopefully that made sense. I was explaining a lot there.
No, that made total sense, and I suspect people listening were going, "Yeah, we got that straight away." So it's just probably just me. But I'm interested to know. So so you talked about you're doing this scraping essentially. So you're scraping these various websites, you're pulling that into Claude. So there's got to be some element of going, okay, cool. Now let's marry this up with our own sort of value prop. Are you just assuming that within Claude you would have, this is kind of already set up, the services you offer, who you want to go after, and the sort of where your strengths are. So when you're pulling that in, it's kind of marrying it together to get the messaging.
It does, but then I don't rely on Claude alone to be able to do that. I just really want to get the details. I want to get the thing about it is, Claude is helping me to be able to cut down my time to be more precise, so I can describe your pain exactly for you rather than saying, "Hey, Mr. Rheumatologist, I don't know if you know, but AI is out there and it could compromise your practice. We could help." That's very broad. But yes. I think I can say,
you'd be amazed how many people were doing exactly that thing, exactly that. Yeah.
Don't do that, guys.
Yes.
As opposed to saying, 60% of rheumatologists that have face this problem when it comes to customer onboarding in South Florida. If I can show you how you can do that, especially in season when the snowbirds are here, so your practice can be able to operate at 3 to 4%, 20% faster, and you don't miss, people don't skip appointments, would you be open to learning more? Now that is precise, because everyone in South Florida know we have season where snowbirds come, visitors, out of staters come here in winter times, and your practice may get busy, and yes, they might forget and so forth, but you're fixing a problem for me. Fantastic. But that's a detailed description of the problem. So when we go back to the question, it's Claude and tech is helping me and can help MSPs to sound like I want someone when I pitch them to say, "Holy crap, how did you know that? Are you listening to my conversations, right? Are you inside of our business?" But that just comes because AI is able to help us to be ultra relevant and to be precise. And then you can increase that with volume. We don't want to go to 1,000 people we're pitching, but if you can precisely get 10 to 20 people that you're doing those messages towards on a day-to-day basis, optimize that message. The Claude gave you the people. You can tweak your message to human side, and then you can send it out through whatever tools you might have. And we can touch base on LinkedIn because I'm a big believer in how we can utilize that.
Oh, we're clearly going there. I mean, I was going to ask you about tactics. So, I mean, I wasn't quite expecting this level of detail, but I feel like we're pretty much making a campaign in a box right now on this show.
I know, right? We're gonna get some. We should do it like one of those infomercial. If you call in right now, James has an offer.
Yeah, I'm down for that. We should have done this live, Donald. Anyway, not to worry. It's recorded. That's fine. You know where to find us afterwards. But what we have done now is you've just given us some lovely information around, who to look for, how to get up to speed ahead of time. What's very clear from what you're saying to me is you've got to resist that urge to, we've got the tools to just suddenly broadcast a message. We don't want to do that. We want to actually spend the time up front working out what we're going to say. That was really, really cool.
Sales Builder is the proposal and quotation tool for MSPs using Halo, ConnectWise, or Autotask. Create beautiful looking proposals without all the hassle. Connect to all of your favorite distributors for pricing and availability. Connect to your PSA for all of your managed services. Drag and drop content blocks for a beautiful error-free quote to send in minutes, not hours. Stop wasting time on admin. Spend more time talking to your clients. Go check out the free 30-day trial or book a demo today at salesbuilder.com.
Back to the episode.
So obviously the next question then is, and you touched on it there, is what I was going to say, what tactics are we talking here? Are we, what do you see working in 26? Like, are you a fan of cold calling? Is it a mixture? You mentioned LinkedIn, so let's dive into that a little bit. So we know what we're saying. How do we get that message out there?
I'll give you my order of things. All of them, I agree. I like all of the platforms. The means you definitely have to do all. And my number one favorite is LinkedIn. Right now, because of the effectiveness. Number 2 is the phone, and then number 3 is email. And I typically work in somewhat of an order, somewhere around that. So let me explain what I would do now. What I do now that I have my list of my list of companies, what I ask Claude to do is then to identify the contacts that's best for me to reach out to in that organization that's maybe facing that problem or would be able to be,
Oh,
could be my
you get
potential
Claude to do
candidate.
that. You don't. So is
Oh,
that
of
connecting
course.
to Apollo then? Is it? Because that's the
No,
database of content.
Claude gives you the recommendation because it will, I mean, it's AI, so it can say, well, you're talking, I mean, it's going to be probably 99% what you would probably pick. So if it's a sales problem I'm describing, it might give me the sales leader. You might give me the role that I might go for. And then in Apollo then will enrich that. So let me find the sales director.
I see. Okay.
This
Yeah.
company. Or what you're describing is an operation matter and the operation director. So operation director, that can probably it could probably get from LinkedIn or network or public information and say, here are those individuals. And then you can say, all right, enrich that with my contacts. And Claude, I want to get at least 3 people in the organization that may be impacted by this problem. Say less. And then it comes back with those individuals, pulling it from Apollo. So I have the name and emails of those individuals. Here's what I do next. I'm a fan of LinkedIn, and full disclosure, I've been using LinkedIn ever since 2008 when I first signed up. I want to say around there in college. 2010, started using it for professionally and sucked at it. And then over the years, I've improved my LinkedIn. Now I'm an influencer with LinkedIn, and I have like 25,000 followers on LinkedIn. But the key here, they do pay me. They sponsor me, but I want to just give the full disclosure even before that. And they sponsor me because I'm a evangelist for them no matter what. But LinkedIn Sales Navigator allows for you to be able to build precise lists or account mapping. So instead of you manually keeping track of these, I like to group them. So now I have this company from Claude with this pane, and then I go and find the company in LinkedIn and add those people to an account map, so to speak, so I can just keep track of them.
I've seen what you mean. Does that become is that almost like a CRM alternative? Because I'll be honest, I know exactly the functionality you're talking around. I don't think I've ever used it to the point where it's been that organized. Is that your kind of single source of truth instead of like a HubSpot or something? Or
No. So I'm a part of the HubSpot podcast network too. So head scratcher there, right? So I would advocate for HubSpot and for other CRMs. You need to have that. And if those, because that's the single source of truth, but the challenge that I find is that it's this level, it's almost like 2 level, and HubSpot kind of did that for us recently. If you see, the HubSpot has their prospecting stage, so to speak, and then they have like the deal stage, because back in the days we just put everybody in the deal stage, and you have this bloated pipeline that was horrible, and it's like there's nothing real here. Why do you have 1,500 people and no deals? Well, because they're not real yet, they're leads. So we have this lead phase. So almost think of this as the pre-lead phase, right? I can get that list, and I can probably from Apollo and dump it into my prospecting phase in Apollo in HubSpot. But right now in LinkedIn, this is where I'm at until I get a conversation. There are 4 steps that I do. And in our LinkedIn prospecting course, we teach this. The first step is you have to grab attention. Attention is the number 1 thing. Once you grab attention, then you get engagement. Engagement leads to conversation. Conversations leads to appointments. So again, it's attention, engagement, conversations, and then appointments. So typically what most people do, they skip all the first 3 and they go straight into, I want to get an appointment with you. So let me explain how I do this now. Now that I have the 3 people from this company inside my Sales Navigator, what I'm going to do, identify how can I break through the noise, because I think I'm the only center of their universe and the only salespeople selling MSP out there going after them. The challenge is there's probably like another 100 other MSP providers listening to this episode saying, screw that, I'm going for these rheumatologists in South Florida now. So they have all of these people who are lined up to go after them, and they're all going to do noise. So how do we stand out? So I identify people. I try to identify if they're engaged, if they have posts on LinkedIn. If they have any type of posts at all on LinkedIn, I go and I interact with that post. And I would probably just maybe tag something, comment on it. If it's relevant, I might tag someone. Sometimes they might post something and say like, hey, or reshare their company job listing. Like, we're looking for another team member. I might tag somebody in my community and say, hey, just tagging for reach. Donald, you maybe like this position or may check this out, or you know anybody that might want this. Nobody else is commenting on it. All of a sudden, Donald comments on it. I just grabbed your attention out of nowhere.
What else do you do then? Because that's kind of, I
you
guess
can't
if you're
do it all the
tagging,
time.
you're tagging
Yeah,
his
so
value, right? Tagging his value, but then
Very.
trying to find something legitimate to say on some people's posts is quite tricky.
You can't always do tagging. So the key here is there's no one thing. So I really want to stress this. I did this a training with our new sales guy the other day. So easy. Hopefully you're listening to the episode. But I really stressed to him and to another team member we are teaching some of this principles to. I was like, you cannot just go with the one-trick pony. There's a principle of grabbing attention. So that's one way. Another way to grab attention is simply comment on the post. Whatever it might be, find a way to comment. Not saying something like, this is awesome or thumbs up. Like, even if you don't know, but please don't only do this, you can take the post, dump it into Claude or to your AI of choice and say, hey, I'm trying to interact with this particular prospect. You know about me and what our company does. Can you give me an angle of what I can say to be able to grab their attention and, asking a question?
That's better than an automated comment, isn't it? Because I think everyone's getting absolutely sick to death of those very obvious AI comments.
You know it, like but I like to engage with them and I ask a question because the question usually prompts some kind of interaction, especially if they have 20 people who engaged on the post and only 2 comments. One of them of their boss, and then now this other person, Donald. It's like, okay, let me respond because absolutely no one on God's green earth is going to do a post and not want to have their ego, take off and not have people comment on it. All of us get that dopamine when somebody comments on a post, or we get 1,000 followers and 10 comments. Like, oh man, it feels so good. But you're not just doing this as a ploy. You're trying to gain engagement because if I can grab your attention, then I can get engagement. So then I use that. So you might do tag somebody in there who's relevant. You comment on a post. You like the post. If it's beneficial, if it's a quote or something, I might share that post. And if they don't have anything, I figure out another way how I can grab their attention. But usually the post is one way you can do so. But then let's say they do have a post, and their post is like, "We're so excited to go to Rheumatologist World in this summer. Come stop by our booth." I might say something to the nature of, James, never been to Rheumatology World. Is it something that you would recommend? Our marketing department is always looking for conferences. Or if we are going, I might say, awesome, can't wait to see you guys there. Are you guys giving away anything cool at your booth? But it's just to get engagement, right?
Yeah,
but
it's more legitimate, isn't it?
Exactly.
Some of the questions are really obviously AI, but if you're actually being the human in the loop, that's different.
Like, I'm going to put my foot down there. You have to be the human at this part. And then the piece that I do with that is then I send a invitation, and I do use messaging, text on my connection request towards them. And this is my reason why. LinkedIn typically charges you, but let me explain. You might say they don't charge. Well, if you don't have LinkedIn premiums, any of their premiums, you can send 3 connection requests with message. 3. So then now, if LinkedIn sees value in that and they have loads of data, there's clearly a benefit on sending a message with sending a connection request with a message. There's a camp out there that says send it without the message, and it's a better chance.
Yeah, I feel like I'm in that camp. I mean, it's been a while since I've done this stuff, but I've often thought, okay, just send them. Rely on your profile, but you think otherwise.
Yeah, if you send some bull crap thing like we have same connection, or hey, I would like to talk to you about our services, like it's Captain freaking obvious. Like don't. But I'm talking about human engagement. James, I told you I was going to mess him up. We have a friend.
John came in. So there's a John Steele doing the rounds apparently. But anyway, go for it.
So if James is on LinkedIn and James posted this dope episode with this guy named Donald and James said something like, "Can you believe it or not, Donald doesn't like fish?" That's my in. I might say something to the nature of, James, Donald's not a big fan of fish. I can't believe I guess you're not sending him a fish and chip gift card. Anyways, look forward to jumping in that episode or checking out episode because the whole British thing and the fish and chips and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. You've just been a little bit cryptic and a little bit lighthearted.
But you're going to know what that means. You're going to be like, well, thank you, whatever. Even if that's just the case. And that's my connection request to you. You're going to say this guy actually did some research. This actually looked like somebody that's, a tongue-in-cheek, having some fun, but it's not like we have friends in common, or I'm in the same network as you are, and I like to connect with other people. Like that garbage those messages does not work. But here's what the data comes back in. I did a thing with, who are Snovio, and they did studies and they looked at all of their data. It's 26% connection accepted with a message versus 29 without a message. But then when I go deeper to ask them, they didn't have the data on what was those messages that were sent with the connection.
Oh, yeah, of course. It's such a massive variable, isn't it?
Guarantee you, it's not that big of a difference, but I guarantee you, I would bet my whole freaking salary on it that it was guaranteed those messages are not personalized. And that makes a difference. Because LinkedIn has the freaking data. Why would you go against that? You know what I mean? So it's that personalization that comes back to it. So anyways, that's what I do. And it works time and time again. But I'm not doing this pitch crap in my connection requests. And you could test it out and do some without it. Because again, it's not the variable. It's not that different. But if there is something I can ultra personalize that outreach on, you best believe I'm going to do that. Because it's going to connect back to you, right? Or I might say something to the nature, in your case, James, I have a big network of a bunch of salespeople. I'm not selling the HR services, but I have a big connection of salespeople. I shared this. I saw your post, shared it on my network. Permission to connect here on LinkedIn. I always use permission to connect on LinkedIn. It doesn't make sense phonetically, but it's something that I've used. But we've been prone ever since we were grade school. Whenever somebody asks you a question, respond with a question or respond, and that increases my chances. So I do that, and I know we're going off here. We're going over time.
No, I love this. What's coming across though is that you can tell every time you give me an example of what you would say, it always sounds pretty cool, and like I would probably accept that. And I think that's where the skill comes in, whether you realize it or not. It's really getting the wording right, because it will sound very wooden if it's someone who's not as experienced as you. But this is the skill that I think probably needs to be learned. This is the craft, isn't it?
And it's a practice, right? But it's what's not going to improve us is just using AI to do all of it, because that reduces that human interaction.
It's almost an anti, isn't it? It's an anti effect if you go down that route, because it really is personalized properly.
And I would go over to your camp, James, and I would say, if you don't have something to say, then go ahead and send without a message. Because again, 26% to 7% to 29.
That is marginal.
7, right? At that point.
We're down with the kids on this show.
But so once I do that, now I grabbed your attention because I just tied with something that you are passionate about. You're going to rheumatology world. So I comment and engage, and then I use that as a connection request. That starts the engagement. And then from there, I can typically have a conversation with you. What I do is I send a video message only on your mobile device. I don't have my phone with me, but yeah, I do. Here we go. So on your mobile devices, on LinkedIn, you can send a video. Don't do like StreamYard and Vidyard and plug the video. Vidyard, you can do an embedded video inside of LinkedIn. But LinkedIn profile has a way that you can do a native video. Native video meaning a video that is not going to take you to a link, but inside of their LinkedIn. But I would just do something like, hey, James, appreciate the episode the other day. Really enjoyed the conversation with Donald. Just sent him a connection request. Look forward to more of your content. Thanks again for connecting. But that's it. No pitch, nothing. And it's just like, this guy's cool.
But when do you get to sell your stuff? Well, this is going to take ages, Donald.
Well, you might think it takes ages, but all of this stuff, this is what happens. We can skip all of that and send the direct email, and then God bless us, we don't get anything back because it goes into the void of nothing. So I grabbed your attention, you accepted my connection request, and now we have engagement. You're going to engage on that video. Cool, never seen a video like this before. And then I blow your mind even more, so I send a voice message. I was like, yeah, it's a tool that's here in LinkedIn, but blah, 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 and do that. And then this is where you start your pitching. Where I come in now with either phone or an email. Once I've grabbed that attention, my email, I utilize that. I might say, no fish and chips for DK in my subject line. And then I go into that, James. And the thing that I teach is that you tie your first sentence to the subject line. The subject line is what gets you into the door, what's opened the email. So if you have to give me something tied back to that. I might say, James, as Donald shared, no fish and chips for him this year. ... Anyways, I listened to your episode and I saw a couple things that I thought really could, find benefit with. Are you blah 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 open to blank blank? And I gave a value. So whatever the value proposition is, I usually keep my emails to a text message or even just a slightly long text message to a friend. 1 to 2, maybe paragraphs. That's it. But the paragraphs are 1 to 2 sentences each. But the last sentence is a question. I don't say something like, "Would you, let's set up an appointment." I would always ask a yes or no question, because again, the key is engagement. So if you can reply, make it easy for them to reply, it makes it better for you. But the chances of you replying increases significantly because I've grabbed your attention, we've got engagement already, and then I clearly hit you with a value proposition that was hyper-personalized from the information that I got from Claude regarding your, the services, and that's it. And then
what's that question you're asking, Donald? What is that question in the email then? So just to be clear on that one, because that is where it can all fall down, isn't it? It's suddenly like, oh, you're just telling me stuff. It's like instant.
Go back to the same problem that we were talking about. Describe the problem so well. So if let's not go with you, but let's go with the rheumatologist. John, one of the things that I noticed, I know you guys are going to rheumatology world, blah blah blah. Maybe that's my first sentence and tie back to the subject line, rheumatology world ? Told my marketing department. Turns out that we're sending one of our guys to rheumatology world. Can't wait to go by your booth. Hopefully you have some more scrunchies, squishy dumplings left or whatever they're giving out. Out of curiosity, notice that you guys are also in South Florida. Many of our clients are there. If we can show you blank, and you try to put this in again short sentences. If we could show you blank, would you be open to learning more? And it's a yes or no question. That's it. The value, and each value proposition is going to be different. So that value proposition is coming from that problem that we saw from the competitors' website that they're facing. 67% majority of rheumatologists mentioned that they're in season in South Florida, that they hate missing, getting missed appointments. If I can show you a way that you cannot avoid missed appointments and help your staff, would you be open to learning more? That's it. But it's tied back to the value proposition, whatever that value proposition is. If it's for an MSP case, and then go back to the MSP problem. What is the business problem that they're facing that you could solve? And again, we got all that answer. Claude did that for us when it looked at the case studies of our competitors. Am I making sense there?
Yeah, you really are. It just underlines the importance of it. It's kind of one of those things that's sort of, like in the back of your mind, that you're supposed to research your market and so on. But I think the idea of going to the case studies, I think that's where the power really comes in, because then you're tying into it's the customer voice you're going off with, and you're taking it from there. So it's not a sort of marketing spin that's slightly on the wrong angle, or you're starting off from literally the horse's mouth, so to speak.
And somebody's going to push against us and say, Donald, Mike, there are not a lot of case studies in our industry. Well, screw it. Then go back to the problems that if you have a customer, what is the problem that your customer has been facing, right? Just like, what is that problem that they have faced that you've solved? That's your value proposition. If you don't know what that is, then you go to Claude or go to chat and say, I'm trying to look at what are the top challenges facing rheumatologists or doctors' offices in South Florida when it comes to regarding to my services, which is MSP. Well, they face blah, 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 blah. Can you help me to finesse a quick, which one that you see the most on your searching that they have issues with from public information, from Reddit or whatever? Here are some of the top challenges that we see rheumatologists or chat groups are mentioning, and it's maybe 4 or 5 people saying the same problem. Well, if it's 4 or 5 people, it's probably the same problem that can replicate across. So you use that. Many of the rheumatologists that we work with, the biggest challenge they're worried about is that they're focusing on the health, and they're not necessarily worried about the technical side, which obviously leads to compromise software. And rheumatologists are seeing the most impact in South Florida recently. If I could show you a way that you can prevent your staff from getting computers from getting hacked, would you be open to learning more? But I am just taking information that's readily available, but it has to be information that's going to be relevant to me as an organization. And that's where your big data platforms allows for you to be able to not sell to many, but sell to a few. And now you sell with a spear.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, it's never been a better time, is it really, for this kind of thing? I mean, that principle's always been there, but it's always taken a hell of a lot longer. Listen, I could just keep asking question after question, quite honestly, because we could just keep delving into this. I didn't realise quite how much this was going to sort of sprawl, but it's brilliant. I've got to ask you just a quick one though on this. So this principle of how to start conversations, how to keep them flowing, how to get the engagement, and so on. Sure. We've sort of assumed that then at that point in the email, we're quite happy to start thinking about, okay, can we arrange maybe a conversation? Can I ask what your thoughts are on the use of, say, like a webinar or something as an interim stage? Would you go down that route, or do you think it's just unnecessary? I mean, the classic one right now is, a lot of MSPs are thinking, okay, we've actually got something nice to talk about. We've got the AI technology for MSPs, so Copilot and so on. There's loads of things that we can talk to customers about that they'll actually understand. Do you think webinars have a place here, or do you think, no need, just go in and
1,000%. Because they may not be what I use. Donald Miller says if you, it's called a transitional call to action. So if you ever heard of Donald Miller, he has some amazing books. But that transitional call to action, you may not be ready right now to learn more. You might say, yeah, no, I'm not interested. I say, well, every so often our our team runs webinars that specifically for rheumatologists is around, specifically, one of the hot topics right now is around AI and, utilizing that in their workspace. Would you be open to come to one of our webinars in the future, or whatever you want to call it? Sure, open to join you for that. But now you have the email address and you might reach out to them, and that's opportunity you can resell to them, so to speak. But if you can get the appointment, I just go straight for the appointment rather than trying to wait for a future thing to close it or to convert them. If they're engaged, they say, yeah, open to learning more. Like, okay, great. Let's set up a time. Which of these time work for you? But that's how I would use it. And the reason why I see this is that sometimes when you find highly technical people, they are not wanting to have that individual interaction at one-on-one. So I've found this with MSP providers. So what they do, it feels comfortable to delay it later and to push it off to something else into that webinar. And if that's the case, I don't want you to do that, but use it as a transitional call to action if they're not ready to book an appointment, because we want to get the fastest path to our destination. And we already have started so much to build the value and the relationship. We want to get there with this. Now, some people will say, well, why don't you just do a whole lot of blasting of emails? You can do that. You can hire a firm to do that. If you are going to go in that route, it is going to be, it costs you a little bit, because you're going to need, either way, you need multiple domains, because you can't use one domain if you're going to do a big outreach campaign.
There's a whole infrastructure needed, isn't there, for that kind of thing?
Yeah. So if you're going to do that, you can, but don't go use your, Joe at mspprovider.com. You're going to blow that sucker up, and then you won't get into everybody's spam.
Yeah, you're not advocating for that, though, I guess, because from everything you've said, it's all about targeted small amounts and doing that sort of personalized approach, really.
Personalized, you'll be fine. Even when a personalized, still spin up another domain that you can use. For us, we have the salesevangelist.io and the salesevangelist.com. Right. So I might use IO for some of my emails while I don't compromise .com too much. Or, you can always buy another one of those. But either way, that does help. But there's different strategies. But this idea, and can you do a couple of those on together? And I think especially in MSP world right now, like we talked about, it is if you niche, it is going to some of that physical stuff as well. Get into front of those conferences, into that niche audience where your customers might be, and you just be there, even if you're the only MSP provider, right? So if you go to this rheumatology world, and you might think, well, there's not a lot of MSP people there. That's the exact thing, and I'll give
that's
you. That's
what you're looking for. Yeah.
I give this big shout out to Mallory. She probably doesn't remember me from college. This girl I was trying to holler at, right? And
is that what it's called?
That's back in the days, man. Let's try to talk to her. And Mallory, she invited me to go to Pilates class, and I'm like, all my homies, the guys, were at home playing video games. I remember leaving, and they were in the living room. They had video games, and they're just hanging out, right? So they're expecting girls, but they're all hanging out with a bunch of guys. So Mallory taught me this principle without even realizing it. I went to this Pilates class, and guess what? There was 2 other guys in there who were married, and me, and a class full of girls. And then I was like, this is the key. Go where your customers are. Don't go hang out with a bunch of your MSP providers in the playing Dungeons and Dragons or whatever they're playing, Call of Duty. But I'm going to go to Pilates class, the rheumatology conference, where I am the only MSP provider. And ta-da, that's how it works. So
that's brilliant. I love that so much. I've got having worked on the vendor side and with MSPs, I've got a thing about this as well, because you see the money that goes into some of the events at the moment, and everyone piles there and goes to 6, 7 of these a year. I mean, there's a classic example. Literally last week, I was at MSP show, London Excel, and the Excel is one of those venues where it's got lots of different conferences happening at once. And I'm sort of walking past Accountex, it was called. So it's the accountants exhibition. Just looking at it thinking, all you guys that are over here should definitely be over here. We know where your customers are. And of course, there's a place for community and everything else. I'm not saying not, but
No,
there's
it's
got to be a
100%.
balance. But you put it beautifully there. I mean, that's it.
I do that too. I'll go to an industry conference. You go to like Inbound, and you go to like Salesforce and things like that. You go to these conferences, and it's great because you get a lot of industry insight. But you'll have some customers come and try to look for people. But again, it's like me staying at home with 10 guys, and maybe 3 girls will come over, and we're all trying to fight for their attention while playing Call of Duty, when I can go to Pilates and I have 30 girls in the class and 1-to-30 ratios. I like that odds a lot better.
Who'd have thought? People are going to be listening to this. Not only have they learned something about outbound lead generation, but they know Pilates is the place to be if they're single and struggling with Tinder or whatever else it is that's going on these days. Donald, I've loved this. Stepping through this has been absolutely brilliant. Listen, I've got a segment I told you about, so we need to do this. Industry manure. So out of all the stuff that you hear, and if you can bring it into MSP land, great. If not, don't worry. But what do you hear banded around as sort of advice these days that you just think, no, that is an absolute crock of shit. I don't want to hear that. That's bad for your business.
Yeah, and it's probably a couple, but the easiest one that I'll tell you is that cold calling is dead. And then, like I've just explained here, I'm a fan of the phone. I'm a fan of email. Cold calling is not dead if it's done right. If you do what I tell you, your phone calls get answered, because now that's a warm call into that organization. That works. You make the call warm before, and then you don't necessarily have to do a cold. So that's my process. Instead of doing the call first, LinkedIn first, then I do the email or the call.
We also have a segment called Yell from the Barn. So this is your opportunity to give a shout out for wherever you'd like our audience to direct their attention when it comes to what you're up to and what's currently on your agenda.
Well, I thank you. And one of the things that I would tell you, we have instead of giving out, and I'll give you the trick behind this too as well. So I'll tell you the tool first and then the trick. So I used to track my sales performance on a day-to-day level utilizing spreadsheets, like just track how many phone calls I made, how many emails I did, and when I first started off selling software. And the brilliant behind this, I didn't know how to be successful in the industry, but my data started telling me, Donald, every time if for every 20 calls you make, you get a conversation. And for making this up, but every 5 conversation, you get an appointment. So where can I improve? Yeah, like it just helped me. So we did this to all of our clients in our training program. We gave them the spreadsheet and people loved it. So we were like, can we make this into a SaaS? So in the age of AI, it just makes sense. So I use Base 44 religiously. So I went to Base 44. I said, hey, can you make this into a SaaS software? And that's what we have. You manually put your stuff in. It's not replacing your CRM, but what it does, you can take your CRM data at the end of the week and put it in there, or end of the day. But what it does, it gives you that information to be tracked. So I know every single day from the approach I tell you, if I do 12 outreaches on LinkedIn, that's going to lead to a conversation. For every 4 to 5 conversation, it leads to an appointment for me. So then I can know on a day-to-day basis, if I want to get the 3 or 4 appointments for the week, I know that I need to, 12 outreaches time, you just do the math and the system can tell you. So now you know what you need to do. But then I budget, well, I'm going to take about an hour to do that. Now I have the other 7 hours of the day to do my stuff, but you have to put prospecting first. You have to track your data. And if you just wing it, it's not going to work. So we created prospectpro.io, and you can download it for free, no charge. It's a free tool. Now, here's a trick. What's the trick into that? I would send people to go onto my newsletter, or go into my email list, or go on to get my PDF download, which you're not going to read. But now here's a utility that you can use to help you to sell better, and you give me your email address. And we can then connect with you, transitional call to action, connect with you when I do a webinar, and connect with you when we do have programs. And you're going to say, that guy gave me a ton of offer. I love this stuff. Let me see if I can jump in one of his coaching programs. There you go. That's a trick.
Brilliant. So, I mean, I think every MSP is looking to get on this journey of more proactive sales is going to need the ability to be able to sort of track their activities. And I think we're all guilty of trying to wing this if you've ever tried sales. So I think that's a brilliant tool. And the nice thing about being on your email list as opposed to someone else's is that you're producing quality content all the time, regularly on the podcast episodes. There's new stuff coming out consistently. So, Donald, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Honestly, you've given us so much. Hopefully the audience listening agrees with that as well. Where's the best place to reach out to you if people got sort of questions on any of this stuff? Is it, I'm guessing you're a LinkedIn guy, so it's going to be there, right?
You can go to LinkedIn and just hit me up, tell me you heard me here, and see if you could practice what you learned. Donald C. Kelly on any platform, but especially on LinkedIn, and tell me, hey, connected with James, listened to his podcast, thought I would connect with you. There you go. And let's start a conversation.
Thanks for joining us. Been great.
Appreciate you.
See you soon. That is it for this episode of Harvest. If you found this useful, all the links we mentioned are in the show notes. And of course, if you enjoyed it, please do leave us a review and share it with a friend, or even better, someone else in the industry who you know would get value from it. Until next time, happy harvesting.